the bill. Part 2 of the bill provides for the establishment of the Fire and Rescue Services Board. The board is a body corporate and shall be responsible for the registration of the fire and rescue services professionals, regulation of the profession of fire and rescue services, and setting uniform standards for the development and general practice of fire and rescue services. Part 3 of the bill provides for the registration of the fire and rescue services professionals. It provides for the qualification for registration of the fire and rescue services professionals, the application process, and the manner of keeping and alteration of the register of the fire and rescue services professionals. There are other parts of the bill like Part 4, Part 5, Part 6 and Part 7 as well. The bill delegates legislative powers to the Cabinet Secretary responsible for matters relating to fire and rescue services and disaster management. It does not limit any fundamental rights or freedom. It concerns the counties in terms of Article 110, subsection 1A of the Constitution, in that it contains provisions that affect the functions and powers of county governments are set out in the Constitution. Firefighting services and disaster management is a county function under Part 2 of the 4th Schedule to the Constitution of Kenya. The Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment Bill 2024 will also be read for the first time this afternoon. This bill is courtesy of the Senator for Meru County, Senator Gathuri Murungi. The principal object of this bill is to delete cathinone and cathin, being substances found in miraa, from the ambits of the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Act. According to the Senator, miraa is a recognized crop under the 2nd Schedule of the Crops Act of 2013 and is a source of livelihood for many Kenyans. The government of Kenya has been at the forefront in instituting key institutional reforms in the miraa industry. The Senator argues that these reform initiatives culminated to the enactment of the Crops Miraa Regulations 2022, the opening of Somali markets, and the renegotiation of the reopening of markets in other countries. Despite these strides and gains made in developing a well-elaborate and robust miraa sector, the Senator argues that miraa industry continues to suffer setbacks as the national campaign against alcohol and drug abuse classifies miraa as a psychotropic substance because of the cathin and cathinone substances found in miraa. This move, he says, contravenes the government's position and continues to hurt the miraa market. Amending the 2nd Schedule by removing cathinone and cathin and all their non-proprietary and chemical names from the list of substances mentioned in the schedule will, according to the Senator, in essence, remove miraa from the list of drugs as classified by NACADA. This removal, he argues, will in turn bolster the image of miraa and affirm its status as a crop, thus providing more market access. If you're just joining us, the business of the Senate is about to begin. We are taking a look at the order of business this afternoon, where a number of bills will be read for the first time, among them the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 1 of 2024. This bill is courtesy of the Senator for Meru County. And now I will hand you over for this live broadcast of the Senate proceedings. There, the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Jaffa Kingi, has stepped into the chambers. My name is Edward Kabasa. Enjoy your viewing.
Tuombe. Mwenyezi Mungu, twakusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba tuwajalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi hii yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes. They are outside the chamber, Majority Leader.
Good afternoon. If you're just joining us, the Senate lacks the quorum needed for the business to commence, and the Speaker has ordered the quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. And quorum has been achieved.
Senator Sifuna, you're totally out of order, but you'll go with a caution for now. That's enough. Clerk, kindly proceed to call the first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable members, kindly take your seats. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, a delegation from the County Assembly of Turkana, comprising members of the Turkana County Assembly Board and its Secretariat. The delegation is undertaking a benchmarking visit in the Senate. I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. The Honorable Benedict Lokama, the Honorable Elizabeth Lokoel, Mr. James Ekimat, and Ms. Catherine Ereng. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow the Majority Leader under 1 minute to extend a word of welcome.
The County Assembly. Mr. Speaker, sir, these are our gracious host to 2023 Senate Mashinani. We had a beautiful time in the great county of Turkana, the cradle of mankind, and they took great care of the entire Senate in that one period. If they find time, as they have done today, to come and visit our house and learn 1 or 2 things about how this Senate operates, then it is expected that the office of the clerk and yours, Mr. Speaker, sir, will accord them all the necessary facilitation that they need to enjoy to their full all that they have come and that appertains to their learning, Mr. Speaker, sir. So I do welcome this delegation from Turkana. I wish them well. When you get back home, please pass our regards as a Senate. We are still grateful because of the great 1 week that we had in the beautiful land of Turkana. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order, clerk.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
The Majority Leader.
I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, the 29th of February, 2024. These are the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Wajir County Revolving Fund for the year that ended 30th June, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. Then, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Wajir for the year ended 30th June, 2023, of the following: the County Executive, the County Assembly, the County Climate Change Fund, the County Government, the County Revenue Fund, County Government Receiver of Revenue, Revenue Statements, County Bursary Fund, County Revolving Fund, County Disaster Management Fund. Then the reports of the Auditor General on the statements of the year ended 30th June 2023 for Kilifi County Health Services Improvement Fund, Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund, County Assembly Car and Mortgage Loan Scheme Fund, then Migori Car Loan and Mortgage Fund, County Government of Kwale, Receiver of Revenue, County Bursary Fund of Kwale, County Executive of Mandera, County Government of Mandera, County Revenue Fund, County Education Bursary Funds of Mandera, County Government of Kirinyaga, Receiver of Revenue, County Education Bursary Fund of Kirinyaga, Kirinyaga Investment and Development Authority, Kirinyaga County Assembly Mortgage Fund, County Executive of Garissa, Garissa County Assembly, Garissa County, Garissa Receiver of Revenue Statements, Garissa County Investments Development Authority, Garissa County Emergency Fund, Garissa County Revolving Fund, Garissa County Government of Garissa County Revenue Fund. And then the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Kilifi Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund for the year ended 30th June 2020. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Kilifi County Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund for the year ended 30th June 2021. And lastly, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Kilifi County Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme Fund for the year ended 30th June 2022. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay.
The Honorable Senator Catherine Muma.
Mr. Speaker, I'm tabling on behalf of Senator Catherine Muma. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, the 29th of February, 2024. This is a report of the 147th Assembly of Interparliamentary Union and related meetings held in Luanda, Angola, on 23rd to 27th of October, 2023. I thank you.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate. Today, 29th February 2024, report of the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations on its consideration of the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 25 of 2023. There's supposed to be two, huh? Where's that one? Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, 29th February 2024. The report of the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations on its consideration of the County Assembly Service Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 34 of 2023.
Next order, Clerk.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Catherine Muma, now that Majority Leader, you've laid that report on the table, you may proceed to give notice on the same.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, which is a report of the 147th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, and related meetings held in Luanda, Angola, on the 23rd to the 27th of October 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Senate notes the report of the 147th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union and related meetings held in Luanda, Angola, on 23rd to 27th October 2023, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 29th February 2024. I thank you.
Honorable Senator Katuri Murungi.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That the Senate notes the report of the 63rd session of the OACPA's Parliamentary Assembly and 43rd session of the ACP-EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly meetings in Brussels, Belgium, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 6th December 2023. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order, Clerk.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statements pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, the Honorable Mohamed Chute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My statement is a request for statement on expenditure of funds in Marsabit County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to...
Senator Sifuna, Senator Eddy, and Senator Ledama. You may proceed to consult, but keep it on the law. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding expenditure of funds in Marsabit County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, table the total budget allocation for the county government of Marsabit for the financial years 2021, 2022, 2022-2023, and 23 to 2024, including a breakdown of development and recurrent expenditure, detailing various expenditure categories including salaries and wages, infrastructure projects, social services, administrative expenses, and any other significant expenditures for both the executive and the county assembly. Number 2, provide details of any budget alterations, including over expenditure or under expenditure compared to the budget allocation during the said financial years, and outline any supplementary budgets enacted by the county government since the year 2021 to date, including the reason for their implementation. And finally, number 3, table a comprehensive status report of all projects initiated by the county government of Marsabit from the financial year 2021 to financial year 2022 to date. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
The Majority Leader. Statements pursuant to Standing Order 57-1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order number 57-1, I hereby present to the Senate the business of the House for the week commencing Tuesday, the 5th of March, 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are 34 bills at the second reading stage and 4 at the committee of the whole stage. 2 of these bills at the second reading stage have been listed for division in today's order paper at order number 12 and 13. I request our party whips to mobilize the requisite number of county delegations for the divisions to be undertaken. At orders number 13 and number 14 and 15 in our order paper today are two motions for the consideration and adoption of reports of select committee on the county public investments and special funds have also been listed. I request Honorable Speaker to give these motions priority and order of proceedings for today to facilitate expeditious conclusion on them. I request our honorable senators to remain in the chamber during debate in this motion so that we can conclude on them before the rise of the House today. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regards to petitions, a total of 22 petitions are pending conclusion by the respective standing committees. The summary of the committees that are yet to conclude the petitions is as follows. Standing Committee on Agriculture, I see Senator Murango is here, the chair of the committee. You have 2 petitions that are due for reporting. Standing Committee on Education, Senator Nyutu, the chair, was here a few minutes ago. He has 2 petitions. Standing Committee on Energy, the chair, I forget who it is, but they have 1 petition. Senator Sifuna, you're a member of this particular committee. You have a petition that is due for reporting. Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, 1 petition. Standing Committee on Health, 1. Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources, they have 8 petitions. That's a committee of Senator Methu, who I don't see in the House today, but I believe there are many members of that committee. They have 8 petitions that are due for reporting. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge members of this committee to do justice to the petitioners that have come before their committee by concluding on these 8 petitions. Mr. Speaker, Standing Committee on National Security, there are quite a number of their members that are here. I don't see Senator Cheptumo, but they have 4 petitions due for reporting, Mr. Speaker. And when I say due for reporting, I mean they have overshot the statutory 60-day period within which committees are supposed to report to the House, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Roads and Transportation and Housing, they have 2 petitions, and the Committee on Trade and Industrialization, see Senator Seki, their chair is here, they have 1. In total, there are 22 petitions, Mr. Speaker. I request these committees to conclude on these petitions within the shortest time period and table their reports so that Kenyans can continue to have the faith and trust that they do in this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, at the SPC meeting held on Tuesday, the 27th, 2024, the committee approved the next set of questions for reply on Wednesday, 6th of March, 2024. The summary of these questions and the CSs to appear on that day as follows. Question number 10 by Senator Professor Ojenda to the Minister in charge of Transport with regards to road accidents involving tractors and transporting sugarcane in Kisumu County. Question number 11 by Senator Cherargei, MP, the Cabinet Secretary of Roads and Transport on the financial performance of Kenya Airways. Question number 12 by Senator Samson Cherargei to the CS for Roads and Transport on the status of the ongoing projects and expansion of Kerenga Airstrip in Kericho Town. Question number 13 by Senator Simon Cherargei on the status of roads and transport on the status of roads and construction projects in Nandi County. Question number 14 by Senator Enoch Wambua to the CS for roads and transport on compensation arising from the construction of the Kibwezi, Athi, Mutomo, Kitui, Miwani Road. Question number 15 by Senator Wambua with regards to an airstrip in Kitui, by Senator Kathuri Murungi with regards to pending bills on the Kura and Kena. Question number 21 by Senator Sifuna to the CS for Treasury on economic planning by failure by e-citizen to process payments made to some government institutions. Question number 25 by Senator Jones Murango to the CS for Gender, Culture and Arts on the establishment of county libraries. Mr. Speaker, I hope that we can conclude on these questions. You do note that this week, though we had only 2 cabinet ministers, they took quite a long time because of the interest, of course, Mr. Speaker, from the members. Though not a bad thing, but it will present a challenge, Mr. Speaker, with regards to planning. In conclusion, on Monday, the 4th of March 2024, the Senate will hold a one-day non-residential retreat to plan for the third session. I cannot overemphasize the importance of this event in facilitating the effective discharge of our constitutional mandate. I take this opportunity to urge all honorable senators to purpose to attend this event. This is a communication, Mr. Speaker, that you gave earlier in the week. And while you gave it, the House wasn't as full as expected. Perhaps we can request the Office of the Clerk to table that notice and send reminders to members. Because this is an extremely important event, Mr. Speaker, which I do hope that as Senate we can use and take the opportunity to address various issues that are of urgent nature with regards to our performance as a House, Mr. Speaker, and how we can achieve better for the people of Kenya that pay dearly to have this House up and running, Mr. Speaker. There are many domestic internal issues also within us as colleagues, which I believe this will provide the proper platform, Mr. Speaker, a more formal setting than even a Kamkunji, for us to address and resolve these issues and come up with ways where we can run the House better. Mr. Speaker, I therefore wish to request that members find time to attend this. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and hereby lay the statement on the table of the Senate. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 8, the Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 53 of 2023, first reading, a bill for an act of parliament to amend the Cooperative Societies Act and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, the Early Childhood Education Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 54 of 2023, first reading, a bill for an act of parliament to amend the Early Childhood Education Act and for connected purposes.
Honorable Senators, whose phone is that? Whose phone is it? We don't need to seek the services of the Sergeant at Arms to locate that phone. Very well. Proceed, Clerk.
Order number 10, the fire...
Order, Senators. Senator Boni, you're louder than your phone. You've just been cautioned. Proceed, Clerk.
Order number 10, the Fire and Rescue Services Professionals Bill, Senate Bills number 55 of 2023, first reading, an act of parliament to provide for the establishment, administration, powers and functions of the Fire and Rescue Services Professionals Board, to provide for the examination, training, registration and licensing of fire and rescue services professionals and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 11, the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 1 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Act to exempt cathinosic and cathine substances found in the Mira crop from being classified as psychotropic substances and for connected purposes.
Now, honorable senators, at that juncture, allow me to invoke Standing Order 45-2 of course, for the convenience of the House, to rearrange the sequence here of today's order paper. Instead of proceeding with 12 and 13, we move So, honorable senators, instead of moving to prosecute order number 12 and 13, we will straight away move and proceed with order number 14, which is a motion that was adjourned, whose debate was adjourned yesterday. Clerk, kindly proceed to call that order. What is your intervention? Certainly, it cannot be a point of order, unless you're saying the chair is disorderly.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, it could as well mean that there is something that needs to be orderly. I want to request, Mr. Speaker, that to indulge you, understanding order number 45, now that you've rearranged the order paper, that in the course of debate, should the whip signal to us that they have now the requisite number to execute the orders that we have skipped, allow us to pause the debate, we do division, and then return back to the motion on the floor. Kindly, Mr. Speaker, if you can indulge us.
Very well, Majority Leader. So before Clerk, proceed to call the order, please.
Order number 14, motion, report of the Select Committee on County Public Investments and Special Funds on non-remittance of pension deductions to the pension schemes by county government entities.
So at the adjournment of this motion yesterday, the Honorable Professor Tom Ojenda was on his feet with a balance of 3 minutes. He is not present, so we will go by the names on my dashboard. Senator Manzo Daniel. Clerk, can I have the list of those who contributed yesterday so that we don't have them talk today? Senator Manzo is not in. Senator Cheranke.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I want to support this motion by the County Public Investment Committee. Mr. Speaker, I remember in the last session, we were not able to look at special funds and other like county education fund, emergency funds, water fund, Mr. Speaker, and I think it is very important that we need to, I want to thank, because in the last session, Mr. Speaker, before you came on board and other members of the Senate who are in that session, we used only to combine both public, county public, it was called County Public Accounts and Investment Committee. And I remember, Mr. Speaker, since I have served the longest in county public accounts and public investment, Mr. Speaker, we could not look at those, the issue of water companies, the issue of county emergency funds, like special funds, like education fund, emergency fund. Mr. Speaker, is important. My colleague senators should know that most county governments and governors misuse and abuse the emergency fund, Mr. Speaker. If today you call the water or the emergency funds that is meant for disaster preparedness, for example, no county still has the money. And I know, for example, Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, on the special funds when Embakasi tragedy happened, I bet you there was no money that could be used to address, Mr. Speaker, that challenge that occurred then at Embakasi gas explosion, Mr. Speaker. The issue of revenue water, Mr. Speaker, and revenue water and water companies, Mr. Speaker, can you believe, and I don't know, you know, under Article 43 of the Constitution, and also water amendment that I saw my colleagues when we wanted to do a PPP, the biggest challenge, Mr. Speaker, is access to clean and safe water. But can you believe, Mr. Speaker, most of the companies, water companies, are technically insolvent. A number of them, Mr. Speaker, especially in counties. The liabilities that most of these counties, Mr. Speaker, is still a big challenge, Mr. Speaker. And most of these companies, and that is why we were wondering, should waterworks and waterworks, Mr. Speaker.
What is the point of order, Senator Karungo?
Mr. Speaker, I think my good friend is lost. The report we are supposed to be discussing is about the remittance of pensions to the counties. The county or pension companies or entities. He's talking about water companies, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chirange, relevance as a rule in this House must be upheld.
Okay, I will be
and
relevant.
As you build your case,
yes,
just get to know you have 5 minutes.
Okay.
If you intend to use the 5 minutes to build your case,
yes,
then you may not be able to make any progress.
Mr. Speaker, I thought the rules of debate depends on how a debater wants to debate so long as they are relevant. Mr. Speaker, I was building the case. I wish my colleagues who just joined this House should be learning very fast. I was just comparing that before we had county public accounts and county public investment, we have divided. And I was just trying to build the case, Mr. Speaker, because even I remember, because I've served in labor, we used to talk about the non-remittance of funds through lab fund and lab trust, Mr. Speaker. And I hope as we go, Senator, the chairperson of public investment is here, Mr. Speaker. We must ensure that any funds, now that people have understood the difference between CPIC and CPAC, Mr. Speaker, let me get to point number 2. And this non-remittance should be a criminal offense, Mr. Speaker. Because and I want to challenge EACC and DCI, we have made far-reaching recommendations that anybody who does not remit the statutory deductions, Mr. Speaker, to the necessary, be it lab fund and lab trust, Mr. Speaker, they should face prosecution. It should not be a business as usual, Mr. Speaker, because it looks like the county governments and county governors want to abuse and misuse everything that they are being given, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to challenge and agree that I don't know, Mr. Speaker, in another quick succession, whether we should combine both lab fund and lab trust, Mr. Speaker, because they almost have similar duties, Mr. Speaker, so that we have lab trust. I don't know whether yourself, as a former governor, you remit to lab trust or lab fund, but we need to relook, Mr. Speaker, so that, because I remember, I'm saying this with the inside, that last time, there was a fight between lab trust and lab fund, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to say what used to go around when Senator Sakaja was the chair and I was in Labour Committee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to agree that counties must ensure the funds they use is transparent, Mr. Speaker. For example, Mr. Speaker, today, and I want to call upon counties, for example, today, Mr. Speaker, I was with the women rep of Garissa, Mheshimiwa Amina, Mr. Speaker. And she was telling me a story. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, just 30 seconds. He was telling me a story that women in Garissa are being sexually exploited in county hospital facilities, Mr. Speaker, which is very unfortunate. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to support this motion, and I hope the chair will note the changes.
Senator Mwaruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this motion, very important motion, on non-remittance of pension deductions to the pension schemes by county government entities. It should not be lost that, Mr. Speaker, in this House, I had requested for a statement from the Committee of Finance and Budget about non-remittance of these statutory deductions. I would like, first of all, to thank the committee headed by Senator Utsosi, who are doing a very good job, and to say that the non-remittance of these statutory deductions has far-reaching implications. Apart from remittance of deductions to pension schemes, the statutory deductions are not remitted to all the other statutory bodies like NHIF, NSSF, and so on. And Mr. Speaker, this has led to a lot of suffering. For example, when county governments deduct money supposed to be for NHIF, and they don't remit this money to the NHIF, then the workers, Mr. Speaker, do not get medication when they are sick, and this has led to a lot of suffering, Mr. Speaker. Non-remittance to pension schemes, Mr. Speaker, has led to people who go home after serving diligently to governments. It has caused a lot of suffering, Mr. Speaker. We have very many people in the villages, Mr. Speaker, who have retired, but they cannot access their pension funds, be it through LAP Trust or LAP Fund, Mr. Speaker. So what I would urge, Mr. Speaker, the committee is to follow through, and this Senate, the recommendations of the Senate, so that the counties which are culpable, action can be taken against them, so that the workers who are suffering, who are not able to access their money for retirement or as retirement benefits, can benefit, Mr. Speaker. So we would be following through the recommendations of this committee, and we need to work, Mr. Speaker, as a Senate, so that these governors who are culprits and the government entities where there is non-remittance, Mr. Speaker, the organization's heads can be called to this Senate and face the committee of the whole, Mr. Speaker, so that they can explain why the monies that were deducted, Mr. Speaker, and were meant for the pension funds were not remitted, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes, Mr. Speaker, some of this money is not remitted because of under collection of revenue, so that this non-remittance of funds is as a result of pending bills. Mr. Speaker, so what we need to do, we need to have the entities digitize their systems so that the agencies of county governments can meet their targets. Because if they don't meet their targets, then at times we find that they are not able to meet their budgets, and when the budgets are not met, then these deductions become pending bills. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a very important report for the Senate, and what we need to do is then to follow up on the recommendations so that the many people who have retired and cannot access their retirement benefits, Mr. Speaker, can be able to access the retirement benefits. And I'm very thankful to this Senate for having to divide the formerly county public investments and county public accounts and investment fund into two. I would even recommend further, Mr. Speaker, that we divide further these two committees so that we can look at more government agencies, so that, Mr. Speaker, we can have more work done. In the last parliament, I used to sit in CPAC, and there was very little work that was done. But now, because of that division, we have more work being done. So if we can be able to even move ahead and divide the committees into maybe 5 committees, we'll have more work and more effective oversight being done in this Senate. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support the report, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Seki.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also want to support this motion on the issue of non-remittance of pensions by county governments to these pension schemes. Honorable Speaker, I really wonder why counties are unable to remit these monies to the pension schemes, having in mind that it is a contributory. These issues are 12% to the individuals' deductions, the money that are deducted to individuals' employees, and 15% by the employer. I'm really wondering why they are unable to remit these deductions, having in mind that these monies are employees, much of the money is employees' contributions. This means that these monies, or the employees are given less their salaries. It is money that we really need to ask county governments, particularly governors, to explain. And the reason why Mheshimiwa for Taita Taveta was talking about, we need to bring these governors to the committee of the whole to give us reasons as to why they are not able to remit this money. Honorable Speaker, you remember very well that the retirees and those who have also retired are expecting these monies to get their pensions from these schemes. And this means these are people over 60, 70 years. Others are even getting from their own families. Others have even died. So we really need to understand why county governments are killing devolution by not remitting money that belongs to the employees and to those people who have already retired. So for this motion coming to the Senate at this time, it's quite in order, and we want to know what the county governments are doing to reduce such kind of pending bills, because these are pending bills that are not supposed to be there. These are budgeted money, and the control of budget at any given time is supposed to show or even is given requisitions by county governments in regards to personnel emolument. So this means there is a diversion of priorities when money goes to the counties. So I think this is also another issue we want to ask and put the control of budget on task as to why these pending bills in regards to employees is realized in county governments. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to support this motion and thank the Committee on County Public Investments and for Special Funds for bringing up this inquiry and this motion to the Senate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Majaya.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kwanza nataka kumpatia kongole aliyekuwa mwenyekiti wa kamati hii ambayo iliketi kuandika hii taarifa ama ripoti ya kutoweza kupeleka hizi pesa ambazo zinakatwa wafanyikazi katika
Order, honorable senators.
Katika zile pension funds ama mahali ambapo hizi pesa za watu walioweza kustaafu ama watastaafu baadaye huwa zinaweza kuegezwa. Bwana Spika, kitu cha kwanza, ukosefu wa kulipa haya mapato ya uzeeni, yani pension fund, watu wanapofanya kazi katika miaka yao waliofanya na hatimaye kuweza kuweka kitita cha pesa ambacho walikuwa wanakatwa kila mwezi, ni makosa ama ni ukiukaji wa sheria. Bwana Spika, tumeona ya kwamba wafanyikazi wengi wanaofanya kazi katika serikali ama wanaofanya kazi katika county governments, tumeona wengi wao wamekuwa wakikatwa katika hizi kampuni mbili, either lap trust ama lap fund. Malipo haya, Bwana Spika, yana mipangilio yao. Watu wanapofanya kazi ni kwamba wakati akiwa ameritaya anaweza kuchukua pesa zake na zikaweza kumsaidia. Bwana Spika, tunaona ya kwamba hivi sasa.
Honorable senators, may the minority leader be heard in silence, please.
Kwa hivi sasa tunaona ya kwamba wale wanaokwenda katika retirement, hizi pesa ambazo zinatakana ziwasaidie, ambazo zinakatwa kutoka kwa mishahara yao wakati wakiwa na nguvu, wakati wakiwa bado ni vijana, wanafanya kazi kwa bidii na kuweza kuweka hizi pesa zao mwishowe wakiwa katika ile miaka ambayo inaelekea mwisho, inaonekana ya kwamba hizi pesa hawawezi kuzifikia. Imeleta hasara kubwa katika familia nyingi katika Kenya. Katika Kenya tunaona kuna familia ambazo wazee ambao wamesomesha watoto wao, hawa watoto sasa wamekuwa watu wazima, wanatakana waende university, wanatakana waende maskuli, wao wenyewe wanatakana kujikimu, kujinunulia dawa ama katika uzee wao kuweza kuishi maisha mazuri. Tunaona ya kwamba sasa wanafanya kazi na hizi pesa imekuwa kama ni wizi. Wizi kwa sababu sasa ikiwa mimi pesa zangu niliziweka katika shirika fulani, kama ni lab trust ama ni lab fund, na akaunti yangu ile nilifanyia kazi atakana iwe pesa zangu waliziweka sawa sawa na wakazituma kule, hawakuzituma, wale hawawezi kunipatia hizo pesa. Sasa imekuwa mimi siko kule kwa pension fund, wala pia vile vile siko katika kazi. Bwana Spika, tunaona ya kwamba wafanyikazi wengi wanapata tabu na wengi wanakufa mapema kwa sababu pesa zao hawawezi kuzifikia, na hali wanakufa na dhiki ya kwamba pesa zao ziko na hawawezi kuzifikia na mtu amekuwa mgonjwa. Bwana Spika, hili tunaona ni kosa kubwa sana, na hatua lazima hivi sasa hii ripoti ikamilishwe kulinganisha na vile ambavyo wamerecommend. Nafikiria ingekuwa jambo zuri sisi tukifuata zile recommendations zote ambazo hii kamati ambayo ndugu yangu Sotsi amekuwa kama mwenyekiti na wameandika hii wakisema ya kwamba hii ndio taratibu ya njia tunaweza kufanya kuifuata na kuona ya kwamba wale waliokuwa wakifanya kazi na hivi sasa wako nyumbani kuweza kutumia hayo hizo savings zao ama hizo pesa waliziweka wakati wakiwa wazee. Bwana Spika, cha umuhimu ni kwamba wale ambao hivi sasa wako katika majukumu haya, na hususan wale magavana ambao hivi sasa wako kwenye viti, ni umuhimu ya kuona ya kwamba hizi pesa ambazo ziko hivi sasa ni pesa kama bilioni 80. Bilioni 80 si pesa kidogo, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, bilioni 80, na ukiangalia ni watu wangapi hivi sasa ambao wamestaafu wako katika Kenya nzima, wametapakaa katika Kenya nzima, na hivyo wanaishi katika maisha ya uchochole, ni kwamba hizi pesa bilioni 80 hazijapelekwa katika accounts zao ili waweze kuzifikia na ziweze kuwasaidia. Wengi wao wakiwa hivi sasa wamekuwa katika siku zao za mwisho, hatuwezi kusema siku zao za mwisho kuishi katika ulimwengu, lakini wamekaribia upande ule wa mwisho. Ni kwamba ingekuwa vyema kuona kwamba hatua mwafaka imechukuliwa na pesa zimepelekwa ili waweze kujikimu kimaisha, na ama sivyo sisi tunasema ya kwamba ripoti hii ambayo imeandikwa kulinganisha na vile ambavyo wamesema ya kwamba hatua ichukuliwe na wameweza kurecommend ni hatua gani ichukuliwe ili kuona ya kwamba wamepata hizo pesa zao. Sisi tunaona kama bunge la Senate ingekuwa muhimu ikiwa hatua hiyo ichukuliwe mara moja ili serikali za county ziweze kupeleka hizi pesa. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious national problem. I remember the case in Marinya of Mzee Mudi Magoi from Bukusi village. Mr. Speaker, this is a man who never missed a weekend coming to my home to remind me about his pension. He's a guy who had spent all his productive years working for Kenya Railways, and his pension never came to him. Mr. Speaker, that was under the case of the defunct local authorities, which, according to the statistics from NSSF, the defunct local authorities, they owe NSSF 1.8 billion shillings. And the current devolved governments, they owe NSSF 2.7 billion shillings. Mr. Speaker, on the word of the Kenya Union of County Governments officials, they are owed from unremitted amounts a whooping 41.2 billion shillings. Mr. Speaker, these are people who are in their 70s. They are helpless. Even if they were to stand in a village barasa, nobody wants to listen to them. So they need this Senate for the Senate to advance their case, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, so that we don't miss it, it is very unfortunate that the cash transfer to the aged members of the society is working. And some of those people never did anything in terms of formal employment for the country. But the people who actually did formal employment and made their own contribution, governors are today enjoying that money, making trips to go to I don't know where, to go to South Africa, to buy flashy vehicles, and all manner of the wrong things, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we must stamp our foot down. A paper has just been circulated by the distinguished senator from Murang'a to Kiambu, that we request a small shift in the standing order so that governors can face the authority of this whole house. I was not for it, but when I reflect on it, I think it would be nice for some of these funny governors who became governors by accident. Governors must never be elected outside the political elite. It's only people who choose to go into politics that have something for the people. But when you get some professional in Nairobi, I don't know, a manager of ABCD, he then becomes a governor, he doesn't have the feel of the people. It is only politicians, Mr. Speaker, who feel it when they see a child being sent home for 20 shillings. Politicians understand. But a blue chip manager who has been in Nairobi the rest of his life, then ends up as a governor in Migori, has no idea that those realities do take place on the ground. Mr. Speaker, if we expedite this, simple payments like the money due for NHIF will be paid for these people. And NHIF, if you have never had a patient of cancer, ask me. My wife passed on because of cancer, and it can be extremely expensive. So expensive that that NHIF card used to mean more to me than the money I would get from elsewhere, because I would take it to Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and quickly my wife's bill is sorted out. Because we were spending 300,000 shillings per week. So, Mr. Speaker, we must stand behind these good people of ours and insist. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support. I was still having one point, but...
Senator Eddie. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I actually had the opportunity to go through this entire process by the virtue that I'm a member of this committee. Mr. Speaker, may you... The majority seems to be...
Majority Leader, why are you lecturing your colleagues? Have a seat, please, and be orderly. Proceed, Senator Eddie.
Mr. Speaker, the majority is exceptionally happy today. I don't know what is going on. Perhaps he can share with us the source of his happiness in the house today. Or maybe his pension has come somewhere. But Mr. Speaker, the issue of pension, Mr. Speaker, I think this report is very, very direct. And I think that what I wanted to address myself to, Mr. Speaker, is the element of accumulation of this menace. Because, Mr. Speaker, if you read this report, by 2013, when we had the defunct local authorities, Mr. Speaker, the accumulation at that time was about 9 billion. I think that it was spread in a fraction of 5 billion for LAPSET, and I think NSIF had about 1 billion, and then the rest add the others. But then, between 2013 and the time that we were scrutinizing this particular problem, Mr. Speaker, we had reached 85 billion. That accumulation, Mr. Speaker, should worry this House in the sense that it seems that it's becoming something that governors are getting very comfortable with. So, to the extent that, because they think that there has been previous accumulations, Therefore, this cannot even be a first charge in their own account, so that governors are becoming notorious in terms of ensuring that these deductions are not remitted because somebody else will take the responsibilities, knowing very well that county governments go as a going concern. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that one of the most important recommendations that has been made by this committee, which is the recommendation of being able to form an inquiry body, a task force, to conduct a proper inquiry on this issue and put the matter to rest by the National Treasury and anybody who is relevant in what has been proposed as the composition of that task force, Mr. Speaker, is something that this House must give a lot of weight. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I would go as far as propose that this House should stand with that recommendation as the sole recommendation that we must be able to effect immediately, so that in the next 30 days after adoption of this report, Mr. Speaker, that task force can be formed. And this House, Mr. Speaker, perhaps should even go further and require of the National Treasury that after the formation of that task force, give the task force 60 days, so that in 90 days we can be able to put this matter to rest, Mr. Speaker. Because it cannot be taken as normal that people are retiring from county governments, and, Mr. Speaker, they go to their deathbed never seeing the money for their pension, never seeing the money for NSSF, and never seeing any money that they indeed contributed. In fact, alongside what Senator Boni has just talked about, where he has talked about what Senator Thangwa has proposed, that we should have the governors come to this House, Mr. Speaker, instead of the committees, although I don't agree with it, but for me the twist would be, can we move this process so fast so that some of the governors who have not been remitting these monies in this current regime, we can deal with them for once and for all. So they can we can hold them to account as an issue of current affairs, so that it is not only dealing with issues that have been stale and people who are previous governors. Let us make sure that we rush this process in a way that the Cabinet Secretary and the task force can give us that report in 90 days, and then we want to see some of these governors summoned to this House. For this particular one, Senator Boni, I do agree that for this particular problem, we must summon those governors here and then hold them to account on current affairs and current matters that they can take responsibility for. I know that Nairobi is notorious, for instance, that in this money that we're looking for, 85 billion, majority of it is Nairobi. And the governor of Nairobi is there, and a very vibrant senator for Nairobi, Senator Sifuna, is here. We can...
Senator Crystal Asige. Proceed, Senator.
Thank you very much, Speaker. First, I want to congratulate the couple of counties that have been able to make payments to retirees as indicated in this report. I start my contribution. Mr. Speaker, it's indeed perplexing that despite several constitutional safeguards set out in Article 40 of our Constitution, hardworking Kenyans who have dedicated their lives to service and contributing to society find themselves at the mercy of poor management practices by county governments and other parastatals as a whole. Specifically, when it comes to the utilization and allocation of funds earmarked for remittance to pension schemes, which for decades seem to disappear, Speaker. The consequence of non-remittance is serious for retirees entering their golden years. They're left unsure about their finances, which is truly abysmal. Most of them end up depending on their families for daily sustenance, including health costs, utilities, transport, food, even airtime, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, children are not a retirement plan. Mr. Speaker, something that we've never discussed in this House is a phenomenon called black tax, which is money that is expected from us to take care of our elderly family members without question or excuse. Black tax does not care how much you earn, where you work, or your personal monetary responsibilities. It just forces young people to inherit the burden that counties and other parastatals that default in making these payments, as reflected in this report, should be making. This means, Mr. Speaker, that our money is not our money at all. On top of the high cost of living, high inflation, housing levy currently under debate, the new SHIF, increased NSSF, we are then forced to add black tax to this long list as a result of historical failures of counties to do their job. If the report's claim on page 26 holds true, with counties owing about 80 billion, efficient, transparent, and proper systems should ensure some kind of relief for our retirees and for them to at least live a dignified life once they're in retirement stages. It's the exact reason why, Speaker, many Kenyans believe that having more children ensures a greater financial security for the family in old age. For instance, many are deceived into thinking that if they have 12 children, that means that they have access to 12 bank accounts that they can withdraw from without question or excuse later in life. And though we're happy to support our elderly family members because of the sweat that they put into raising us, I still wish to reiterate that children should not be a retirement plan. Counties must execute their mandate. Regrettably, Speaker, this issue extends beyond our county governments, as evidenced by the shortfall in the remittances by parastatals, amounting to about 22 billion Kenya shillings last year alone. This pervasive culture of diverting funds intended for pensions must be addressed urgently. Institutions must adopt a culture of responsible budgeting and timely payment to honor their commitments for these outstanding liabilities. Mr. Speaker, it's disheartening to learn that the Council of Governors chose not to honor the invitations to these crucial meetings as well, which directly affect the areas they govern. And they're the ones in the best position to find solutions. And they didn't show up. That does speak volumes. And retirees should know that this is stated clearly in the report, that our governors did not seem or think that it was important to show up. Mr. Speaker, it may be prudent to explore other avenues to address this. In this regard, involving KRA in the collection of this process, as outlined in Section 53B of the Retirement Benefits Act, could prove beneficial. That, Mr. Speaker, brings me to the end of my submission. I thank you.
Senator Mungatana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also put my thoughts in this debate. Mr. Speaker, retirement is a very challenging part of life. Mr. Speaker, this is the time that your body is reminding you that you are no longer what you used to be. Mr. Speaker, it's a time also that you have a lot of medical bills. Your power is not like you used to be. You can't chase after your business the way you used to be. You are not able to access offices the way you used to do. Mr. Speaker, it's a time when also sickness and disease is part and parcel of management of your life. And sometimes, Mr. Speaker, it's a time when you are managing your lifestyle diseases. So, Mr. Speaker, imagine a situation such as that, and then saddled with that, you have the challenge of not having steady liquid cash. You may have accumulated some land, You may have accumulated some shares somewhere. But, Mr. Speaker, the biggest challenge of retirement is that you are not able to access cash on a regular basis like you used to when you were in employment or in business. Mr. Speaker, it is the time when also private insurance companies, they don't want to take you for medical because you are a high risk. You are a person who is forever engaged in hospitals and so on. So you find even your premiums, for those that will accept you, you will be paying a higher amount. In other words, Mr. Speaker, it is a time when you actually require a lot of cash flow, which is not available as easily as it used to be. Mr. Speaker, therefore, it is sad that governors who are in power right now and those before, they forget that one day, one time, they will leave office. One day, one time, they will grow to be 70. One day, one time, they will be 80 years old, and they will face the same situations that their employees whom they have been mistreating are currently facing. Mr. Speaker, it is a very sad time when you look at governors moving in their nice vehicles. Some of them, Mr. Speaker, they will not switch off the vehicle because it is hot. So they want to give the speech and they wait, their cars are moving and circulating air condition. You know, Mr. Speaker, this is something we see in the governor of Tana River County. You know, you leave your fuel, your car moving so that it is cooled down as you are giving your speech for 1 hour, 1.5 hours. And then when you come back, Mr. Speaker, it is cool, so you sit there. Mr. Speaker, it's really a shame that the same governors, they then fail to pay remittances for the retiree. Mr. Speaker, we are taking this opportunity as senators to tell them one day, one time, Mr. Speaker, they will leave those offices. One day, one time, they will grow old. One day, one time, they will be 70, they'll be 80, and they will need to have access to retirement. So, Mr. Speaker, we are saying, can those governors have a heart, Mr. Speaker? Can those governors pay the people? Because it is a shame when you see an old man who used to be a person with a high position in the county, Mr. Speaker, in the county council, coming to ask for very small amounts of money just to survive from you, Mr. Speaker. It is a very sad situation. Mr. Speaker, sometimes these people even politicize it. When people have left office, if they were not supporting you and you are seeking re-election and they didn't support you, they make it a point not to pay your final emoluments, Mr. Speaker. This has happened to a number of people that we know, Mr. Speaker. And so we are saying that the report has made a recommendation that there will be a fast charge on those unremitted amounts and the debts. And this report, Mr. Speaker, should be implemented. I don't very much agree with this idea that we should form another task force for this thing. There are some recommendations like making it a fast charge and making the KRA a collector of this debt. This can be done immediately. We don't need a task force, a multi-agency to carry.
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia ripoti ya kamati ya Senate inahusiana na masuala ya uwekezaji na hazina maalum. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza naunga mkono ripoti hii na ni masikitiko kwamba kaunti zetu zinadaiwa bilioni 80 takriban, ambazo pesa hizi ni pesa za wale ambao wamestaafu, ambao kwa sasa hawana mapato ya kila mwezi. Mheshimiwa Spika, kaunti yangu ya Mombasa naona yadaiwa bilioni 9 na milioni 420 na 30. Mheshimiwa Spika, swala hili laathiri kila mtu, Mheshimiwa Spika, hata wale ambao wako kazini kwa sasa. Uwezo wao wa kufanya kazi umeathirika kwa sababu hajui akistaafu atapata malipo yake mapema ama hatapata. Mheshimiwa Spika, niliwahi kufanya mkutano na ile bodi ya Mombasa ya Public Service Board pamoja na kaunti ya Mombasa, ambapo tulipendekeza kuwa wale ambao wanajulikana watastaafu karibuni, pesa zao zote zipelekwe kwa haraka ili wanapostaafu wawe hawana manumbukizi ya pesa kuja kudai. Wakimaliza wawe wameweza kupewa pesa zao zote na waondoke kwa usalama. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, swala hilo mpaka sasa halijaweza kutekelezwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hivyo tumeona pia Mombasa iliweza kupoteza estate ya Changamwe New Estate kwa sababu walishindwa kulipa pesa za pension na wakafanyana hesabu na Lab Trust. Lab Trust wakachukua hiyo estate, na sasa sisi kama watu wa Mombasa na kaunti ya Mombasa imepoteza rasilimali kubwa kwa sababu ya kukataa kulipa pension. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, haya mapendekezo ni sawa kabisa kutekelezwa, lakini kama alivyosema Seneta Mungatana kwamba kuundwa kwa kamati nyingine itakuwa ni kuzunguka mbuyu bila ya kuwa na mwelekeo wote, kwa sababu hawa wote ambao wametajwa katika hii waziri wa fedha, mkuu wa sheria, wote hawa pia wako katika masuala ya IBEC, ambapo wanajua kuwa pesa za pension hazipeleki katika yale mashirika ya pension ambayo yamewekwa na serikali kusimamia pension hizo. Kwa hivyo takuwa tuendelea kupigia mbuzi gitaa wakati hakuna mwelekeo wote ambao unapatikana. Kwa hivyo napendekeza Mheshimiwa Spika kwamba tukubaliane na ripoti hii, lakini swala la kuundwa kwa kamati nyingine, hiyo itakuwa inapoteza muda na vile vile pia itakuwa inapoteza rasilimali muhimu ambazo zingetumika kuangalia masuala mengine ambayo yako. Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kumalizia ni kuwa swala la pension kwa vile ni muhimu, na hata japokuwa wanatakikana walipe riba kwa zile pesa ambazo hawakuzipeleka kwa wakati, Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo riba pia haiwashtui. Kwa hivyo itakuwa bora Mheshimiwa Spika kwamba wale magavana wahusika wawe personally liable, wafanye kuwa kama kuna gharama yoyote yatakana kulipwa kwa sababu wamechelewesha kulipa pesa, basi gharama ile iende kwa binafsi kwa gavana yule, kuliko kuwa inaongezeka interest kila siku. Wakiwa tumeshindwa kulipa ile kiwango cha chini, tutawezaje kulipa kikiwa na riba juu yake? Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support the report by the Civic Committee. Honorable Speaker, this is a disease that has been there since those days of the county and municipal councils, Honorable Speaker. As Senator Adia said, by the close of 2012, the different county councils owed the pension schemes over 9 billion. And from 2013 up to now, Honorable Speaker, it has risen from 9 billion to close to about 81, 82 billion. So it means basically the current governors, the governors from 2013 up to now have not been remitting pension deductions. And these pension deductions, Honorable Speaker, it is not that the money has been paid. This is money contributed by the employees, 7.5% and 15% by the county governments. Honorable Speaker, we support what Honorable Tangwa said, that we call governors to come to this house so that they can tell us where do they take the money they deduct from employees. One of the reasons we've seen, Honorable Speaker, the governors are doing, they over budget resources from A&A, their own resources. And then at the end of the financial year, Honorable Speaker, if they don't meet the target, they divert deductions from employees and pay for development they will have done and pay the chronics, Honorable Speaker, at the expense of the employees. There are so many employees who have retired, Honorable Speaker. Some have passed on, have died because of not having the pensions to sustain them in life. This is something people contribute so that in the sunset years, Honorable Speaker, they use the money to buy medicine, they use the money to live good life, but the governors and those mayors those days and the clerks, Honorable Speaker, misused this money and diverted to do other things, Honorable Speaker. And that's why we are saying we ask our members in this house to support this report and we pass it so that the resolutions can be implemented, Honorable Speaker. If you check Love Fund, Love Trust, CBF, NSSF, Honorable Speaker, they are owed a lot of money by the county governments. In fact, out of 47 county governments, Honorable Speaker, it's only 3 of them who are up to date, and we need to laud them. One of them includes Nyeri County Government. They are paid up to date, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are saying that we may need to amend this, the Pension RBA Act, Honorable Speaker, so that RBA can empower KRA to deduct, to be a collector of the pension deductions from county governments. And if they don't deduct, we wish that the control of budget deduct at source so that our people don't continue to suffer, Honorable Speaker, because of just rogue governors, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, KRA, we know they have been very efficient in terms of collection of taxes. And if they are taken as an agent by the county governments, Honorable Speaker, we believe the pension deductions will be collected and our people are not going to suffer, Honorable Speaker. I think as a committee, we have proposed to bring amendments to the RBA Act and also KRA Act, Honorable Speaker, so that this can be done, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we also need Treasury to be tough. And so that, you know, they reign on these governors who are not remitting these deductions, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as it's been mentioned, Nairobi County government is one of the major culprits. You know, they are close to about 20 billion. If Nairobi alone could pay, then basically those deductions will be reduced. In fact, we are proposing, Honorable Speaker, that it becomes mandatory that the control of budget does not release any funds.
Senator Kavindu.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa hii fursa ili niweze kuunga mkono huu mswada wa kamati inaoongozwa na Bwana Ososi, Seneta, wa uhamishaji wa pensheni. Bwana Spika, nataka kuunga mkono nikisema ya kwamba hata ni aibu na haistahili na haifai kuwa magavana wanaweza kuwa wanakata watu pesa zao za pensheni alafu wanakosa kuzipeleka pahali zinastahili ili wakati wa kustaafu waweze kuzipata. Mtu hufanya kazi, Bwana Spika, ili wakati wa uzeeni aweze kupata kitu cha kujisaidia nacho, na wanapokatwa hizi hela Bwana Spika, ni kwamba wana matumaini makubwa ya kwamba maisha ya uzeeni watakuwa sawa na watakuwa salama. Na Bwana Spika, nataka kusema hata sio hao watu tu peke yao wanaofanya kazi katika makaunti peke yao, mbali hata walimu, maana ninakaa kwa hiyo kamiti ya elimu, na ninajua ya kwamba kuna walimu kutoka mwaka wa 2012 bado hawajapata pesa zao za pensheni. Na Bwana Spika, inaumiza kwa sababu hata wengi wanakufa bila kupata hela zao. Bwana Spika, ni lazima hii kamiti ione inaweza kuchukua hatua gani zaidi ya kuweza kumake sure, ama hii Senate ya kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba hizi pesa zimekuwa zimepatikana zote na zote zimehamishwa kwenye fund hiyo ya pensheni, ili hao watu wakaweze kufurahia pensheni yao na pesa zao kama watu wale wengine, kwa maana hata wakati wanapotoka wanapoenda retire, Bwana Spika, wanapata shida nyingi sana, kwa sababu hata wakati huo hawana vyeti vya kuweza kuwaruhusu kwenda hospitalini na kutibiwa na hizo cheti za insurance. na wakati huu ndio huwa mgumu zaidi, kwa maana wengi ndio huwa wanaugua magonjwa kama ya presha, magonjwa kama ya sukari, na kwa hivyo wanakuwa na shida hata zaidi. Bwana Spika, ninaunga mkono na ninasema hatua ichukuliwe kwa magavana na kwa watu wote, hata wizara zile zingine ambao huwa hawapeleki hizi pesa za pensheni pali kwenye ile fund ambayo inastahili. Asante Bwana Spika, nina support.
Senator Abbas. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Also, I want to join my colleagues to support the report. Honorable Speaker, in this country, I think the most people who have been neglected so much are the retirees of this country. We are only talking about the counties. Those who are also working with the national government equally suffer the same problems. It's actually very painful. Having served the prime age, this country with education, and when you retire at the age of 60 or 65, you move around and struggle to get your pension. Honorable Speaker, what happened is actually in these counties, the money for certain reductions are being used as miscellaneous funds. When salaries delay, they pay against salary. When they have any other issues or commitments, they use the same money. And as a result, the same money again accrues interest because the institutions that the social deductions go to, the love fund, care, pensioners, all these, the money accrues actually interest. Actually, as we talk, my county is actually paying now almost 1 billion shillings for the social reductions. And as a result, the most unfortunate thing was the governor who was there, the second-term governor, 2017-22, today is still looking for his gratitude because he failed to submit that money. It's a very unfortunate situation. As a result, today the same governor is looking for the same money, but he failed to do it when it was to submit that money when it was supposed to be submitted. Honorable Speaker, I think this is what the best thing to do. We need to change the institutional, framework for the pensioners. We need to decentralize because you know what happens is these pensioners, they come all the way from the far-fetched areas of the country. They struggle every morning coming to the pension offices. They come to land funds, they come to the pension office in Nairobi. And actually they stay here months and months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, without even getting a pension. The best thing they were told is that we're going to send for you, go back home. They have no even transport, they just get stranded here. Actually, 90 billion shillings is a lot of money. And I think the best thing is this House has to come with a bill in changing the Pension Act so that we compel that every county must submit the money in time. And if they fail to do it, then the pensioners, they are not even giving pension, giving interest. They cannot even get their own money. So one of the things is actually trustees that hold this money at times. They hold money for, so they're saying, oh, this children must reach at the age of 18. So if you say the child must reach at 18 years old and he cannot even go to school, I think it meets, it meets the purpose of paying that pension. So I think that act has also to be reviewed. One other thing, Honorable Speaker, that it is actually this time, the hard times, because of these guys get pressure, they get all kinds of diseases, they cannot access treatment, and therefore, I think to be fair, we need to act as a house to be able to help the retirees in this country. With those few remarks, I beg to support.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this report by CPIC, which I would like to commend them for the report and for meeting with all the stakeholders on matters retirement. Mr. Speaker, I think the issues of the older people, older citizens in the country are not well appreciated and are not well provided for in policy. So everybody who deals with matters relating to persons who are older generation, persons who've retired, seems to deal with them casually. And this is not just a problem of the county governments, but it's also a problem at the national government. Mr. Speaker, we need, in the first instance, to encourage the ministry concerned, which I think is the ministry in charge of labor, to come up with a clear policy on how to take care of the older generation or older people, including those who have retired. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of protecting the retirement benefits of workers, both at national and county level, we need to come up in the first instance. The Senate, in my view, needs to ensure that currently the current remittances of pension funds belonging to workers are done in accordance with the law. So that even as we're dealing with the backlog, we ensure that currently, because salaries are budgeted for in full, whatever is supposed to be remitted to the pension funds is actually remitted. So that we are worrying about backlogs from now back in the past and not creating more backlog from where we are. I have not seen that clearly stipulated there, even as they are suggesting a task force. I think we need to do the first things first. Every county needs to actually remit the current deductions as they're supposed to. Mr. Speaker, we also need, I was hoping the committee would come up with a penalty that would make some of these officers, the finance officers, possibly accounting officers at the county level, to actually be penalized personally for failing to ensure statutory deductions that they're supposed to do. Mr. Speaker, I think the rights of these people, and we don't have a union of persons who are retired, maybe that's why we find it easy to actually violate their rights, knowing that they may not have the capability to come together and go to court to claim their rights. So we willy-nilly deal with their monies as though it is small change that should be dealt with in the manner that it should be dealt with. Mr. Speaker, I request that the issue of the task force be fast-tracked if it must be there. But Mr. Chair, to CIPIC, I think you have the recommendations, and what we needed is actually for those recommendations to be immediately moved and somebody to come up with stringent penalties against officers, accounting officers at the county level and even at the national level, to ensure that what they're supposed to do is actually done. Mr. Speaker, as we move on, as I have mentioned, the policies around the older people are vague and unclear, but all of us are going to be old one day, and it is important that we contribute to coming up with policies and laws that will be able to secure not just the retirees, but other older people, and to ensure that funds that they have invested, whether for health, whether for pensions, are properly utilized. And those who do not secure these funds are actually penalized for misappropriation and also for failure to remit them. I support, Mr. Chair.
Senator Murango.
Asante sana mstahiki Spika kwa kunipa hii nafasi.
People who can be around not to disconnect. But Mr. Speaker, it doesn't define essential services. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we see a lot of gaps in the bill. Mr. Speaker, the bill also only targets those people who work during the day and go home. But Mr. Speaker, the bill doesn't consider some people like the domestic workers. A domestic worker is with the employer throughout. Now, where does this connection? Because the bill now should cover all employees, should not target a few and leave the others. Now, for a domestic worker, the bill should have clearly indicated at what stage should the domestic worker disconnect from the employee and they are living in the same premises. Mr. Speaker, there is the issue of those who work 24 hours. They are always in the employment area. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we find some of the gaps. Mr. Speaker, the bill, as I said, is so biased to the employer because it talks about employee disconnecting from the employer. But the bill doesn't talk about when the employee wants to contact the employer. Is the employer mandated to pick the phone of an employee during out of work? Therefore, the bill should have also indicated when now employees usually call the employer. Does it consider also employee usually call the employer? Therefore, we find some biasness in the bill whereby the employer is not considered at all. There are cases, Mr. Speaker, whereby he's considering the person who initiated the bill, considering the working hours. Suppose the worker or the employee had been given target to work on, and the employee fails to achieve the target. Now, the bill doesn't consider the employer because the employer had given somebody target, but such somebody knows that is protected by the law, that when the time comes for going home, he must go home. That brings a lot of indiscipline in areas of work. Mr. Speaker, the bill, as we look at it, the current government agenda is the bottom-up transformation agenda, whereby one of the main agenda is employment. The bill says that it's targeting an employer who has more than 10 employees. Now, if I am an employer and realize that I'm about to achieve the 10 employee, then I follow in this trap whereby I cannot be able to contact my workers when they are out of work. I will make sure I will not employ the 10th employer. Therefore, it's discouraging employers from employing maybe more than 10. And Mr. Speaker, what we should be legislating under the government agenda of bottom-up transformation of creating employment, we should be encouraging legislation that will encourage the employer to employ more workers, who has 10 to employ the 11th employee. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the committee found that the bill is discouraging those who have more than 10 employees. And we asked, what scientific calculation or something that is tangible, somebody cannot go to court, why he did not consider the person who has 2 employees, the person who has 5 employees, the person who has 8 employees, but only targeted employers who have employees from more than 10. Mr. Speaker, it creates somewhere whereby even the mover of the bill must have been trying to get away from falling on that gap. He might have looked at his institution or his work and has realized he has to go outside that bracket because there is no scientific